Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Daily Roundup on this, a Monday, January the 16th, 2023. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a little bit about my co-host. Do you know what, folks? It's the third Monday in January. That means it's Blue Monday. That's the name given to the most depressing day of the year. But I need only look upon her eyes and smile, and that cheers me up. She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is Sheila Gunn Reid. How you doing there, Sheila?
Oh, David, I'm doing great. Apparently, it's Martin Luther King Day in the United States, so that's sort of a big deal. But if they wanted to make this day a little less depressing, like Blue Monday, maybe they shouldn't have it land on the same as the worst cookie or snack possible, the National Fig Newton Day. That's today. Ugh. You have to be over the age of 85 to even think that those are remotely palatable. Or National Nothing Day. So if you're doing nothing, aren't you doing something? Apparently.
Well, you know what? You're right.
I guess. I don't know.
You know, I once met, though, there's something to be said about nothing because we jam-pack our schedules so tight, Sheila. Everything's organized. Everything's arranged. Everything has a time. And I remember there was a really good editor I used to work for at Canadian Business, and he got his 2 weeks holiday, and I said to him, "Where are you going?" And he said, "Nowhere." And I go, "What do you mean, Scott?" He said, "I'm staying at home in my bathrobe. I'm ordering in food, and I'm not doing it for 2 weeks." I think that would drive me over the bend, Sheila. But you know what? I thought, that's brilliant. It's almost a zero-cost holiday except for the food. And, you know, speaking of which, this was a day founded by a UK travel company, Sky Travel. That's Blue Monday. And it goes back to 2005. And they said they came up with an equation. And it took into account weather conditions that apply to the northern hemisphere. So you're not blue in the southern hemisphere, I guess. And since then, scientists have dismissed the idea as baseless pseudoscience. Oh, you don't think that's going to get us knocked off YouTube or anything, right? Blue Monday's not real science.
It's just a stupid calendar day. Like, who cares? Like, but like for me on holidays, I like to leave the farm because this is where all my work is. So if I truly want to get away from working all the time, this is where my studio is, where my office is, where all the yard work is, the farm work is. So if I want to escape and truly get away from where the work is, there's no shuffling around in my bathrobe a la Tom Hanks in the burbs around here whatsoever.
But, you know, here's the other problem, Sheila. If anyone, and I'm sure many have, because this is the time of year when Canadians do start to look around at Caribbean destinations and Mexico, what have you. There are no deals, my friend, thanks to fuel costs going up, inflation, and a huge pent-up demand of those Canadians who could not travel due to COVID restrictions the last couple of years. There are no deals whatsoever. So it's a sad state of affairs. I guess we'll have to wait till 2024 if we can wait that long.
You just keep waiting. We're 3 years into this. What's another year?
I know.
No big deal. I should tell everybody what we're doing so we can get it into the news of the day, because, boy, the news is one jam-packed pierogi today because we have a team in Davos, Switzerland, pulling the curtain back on the World Economic Forum. So we've got clips coming out from them already. The World Economic Forum Symposium sort of starts today, but they've already been there poking around and showing us, as I said, a peek behind the curtain where you see the Wizard of Oz, but it's just Klaus Schwab trying to feed you a bunch of worms. So anyways.
Not for him, mind you.
No, he's giving them to you.
Yeah.
The worms are bugging him while he's eating his prime rib.
That's Klaus Schwab's biggest decision, Sheila. Is it going to be the ribeye or the T-bone? Not the cricket or the bumblebee raisin bread, okay?
Yeah. I've watched way too many videos since we sort of came into the they're trying to feed us bugs ecosystem. And I've watched a few too many videos about how they turn like bugs into butter and bugs into bread. And it just seems very energy intensive to just turn these things that aren't butter into butter when you could just like go milk a cow, put it in a jar and shake it and then get butter. And then they say that you're supposed to like switch to the bugs so that you are shrinking your carbon footprint. And I'm like, this is me making butter, just shaking a jar. Like, and so you have to like harvest these bugs, press them, like somehow turn like these bug fat into butter and make it stable. And I'm just like, well, you could just also just go milk a cow for a second. Yeah, this is gross.
You know, I never thought about that, Sheila. And aren't these people all about reducing our carbon footprint?
That's why they say you're supposed to do it. And I'm like, this seems very intense. You have to have a lab to do all this stuff. And I'm like, no, there's just like a cow, and I can do it like how my grandma did. Just put it in a mason jar, which is recycled, by the way. I just like shake it and then put it on my toast. I don't know. Seems like I'm about the carbon shortcut a little bit.
Oh my gosh,
Anyway.
you know, super producer Olivia was just running some footage there as you were
Gross.
speaking, and there was one clip. It looked to me like a bunch of maggots writhing.
That was it. That's
And I'm
the one-
really
that's one of the
hungry
videos
right
I
now.
watched.
And now I'm not hungry. That made me lose my appetite.
Going down the World Economic Forum trying to feed you bugs rabbit hole is one of the reasons it makes it very easy for me to intermittent fast during the day. It's because I'm exposed to all this disgusting World Economic Forum nonsense, and it'll turn you right off food for the whole day.
Oh, look at that. Come on. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
if I was starving to death, but, you know, and no lead by example. And, you know, that's the thing about the World Economic Forum, Sheila. The apologists will say they don't have any power. They don't have any legislative ability. They're not elected. But what you alluded to just a second ago, behind the Wizard of Oz's curtain, they are enormously influential with certain governments, including ours, right?
Yeah.
And that's the worrisome part. They don't have to be elected or accountable. They influence politicians, prime ministers, presidents to get their policies implemented. That's what I think makes this organization so dangerous.
Yeah, and the unaccountability of it all. They're unelected. We don't get a choice in any of this. But yeah, if those are my choices, like bug butter or starving to death, I think I'm ready for Jesus. Like, I'm fine. I'm good. Anyways, I was trying to tell everybody what we're doing. We're streaming on YouTube and Rumble and Odyssey and Twitter. Am I missing one? Rumble, Odyssey, YouTube, Twitter, Getter.
Getter. That's it.
Yes, Getter is the last one. So we're streaming on all those 5 platforms. However, if you want to support the work that we do out of the goodness of your heart, instead of Justin Trudeau's compulsion to take your money and give it to media companies, might I suggest you watch us on Rumble and Odyssey. On Rumble, you can leave us a Rumble rant. That's their paid chat. And on Odyssey, you can leave us a hyper chat, and we'll do our best to address those towards the end of the show. And I think that's all sort of tied up. And maybe we can head on into watching some of these World Economic Forum clips, because I get to see them before everybody else does. And there are just a few things that I really enjoyed in that if you're not paying attention, you wouldn't notice. And I'll point those out as we watch them.
Yeah, and what's trending right now, Sheila, was our big boss man, Ezra Levant, pulled over by one of presumably 5,000 troops. I don't know if that 5,000 number, is that just the troops? Is that exclusive of the police officers there? I mean, that seems to be a bit of an overreach. But in any event, why don't we run that video just to show you how, law enforcement heavy this conference is.
In bright orange are police. There have been a reported 5,000 police and military that have been authorized to protect the World Economic Forum as they meet this week in Davos, Switzerland. Of course, I haven't seen 5,000, but I have seen hundreds. In fact, along the way into town, every 100 meters or so was another gaggle of a half a dozen cops. I also saw military and military police Well, one check stop pulled us over. Our carload of journalists, we all turned on our cell phones, and here's what happened.
You just do it all the time.
Yeah.
Put on it. Sorry.
How are you today?
No?
How are you?
No good.
No good? Why not?
No good.
Why is it no good?
Filmen is not good.
But it's a free country, right?
Ja. Jag ska vara
Thanks very much. All the best. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was pretty easy, wasn't it? A very light touch. I simply said, I thought this was a free country. And the cop said, well, yeah, I guess you're right. And he waved us through. No fingerprints, no passports, no ID at all. I really liked it. What a nice change of pace from the country I live in, Justin Trudeau's Canada, where peaceful protests are often met by riot horses like this. Yeah, I like it here in Switzerland, and I can see, though, why there are so many police. The World Economic Forum is not well liked, although the only protests last year were from Antifa. We'll see how it goes this year. To see all our reports, go to WEF.
You know, Sheila, maybe there was something lost in the translation, but Ezra, who subscribes to our philosophy, kill him with kindness, he says to the, I don't know if it was a police officer or a military officer, how you doing? And he says, no good. Maybe that's the Swiss way of getting right to the point. Maybe he had some congestion issues or a headache or something. But, well, it kind of came across as Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator. No good. What an abrupt answer. But then again, maybe that's what we should strive for, brevity and getting right to the point these days.
Now, the thing that really struck me about this is, once again, the hypocrisy. I sort of wish I was there, but I was scheduled to go on this trip, but something came up at home, so I opted to stay home, which was great because most of the company is there. So somebody has to stay here and keep everybody in line. I guess that's my job. But these are the same people at the World Economic Forum who are open borders, they're for open migration, and yet these people have a border around their event, don't they? They
Absolutely.
have police checkpoints that they think we shouldn't have at Roxham Road, preventing the migration of prickly independent journalists into their globalist symposium. But at the same time, for you and me in our countries, they want open borders. And I think that is quite remarkable.
You know, it's kind of funny, Sheila, I was just listening to an interview with that lying liar, Marco Mendicino, the public safety minister. You were talking about open borders, and the question posed to him. I mean, these guys are actually remarkable. Given that in the last 10 months, 34,000 illegal aliens came into Canada at Roxham Road alone. What are you going to do about this arrangement with the U.S.? And he said that the example of 34,000 migrants coming into Canada is proof that the border system is working in Canada. Oh, yeah, I know. Like, I was doing that, too, you know, trying to concentrate on the driving. And because, you see, they're being intercepted by the RCMP. Well, maybe so, but here's the problem. Once they get processed, we lose track of them. No one knows where they are.
Not just we don't just lose track of them. We just let them loose. Losing track of them is part of the system.
There you go.
So they go into these migrant hotels, or at least they used to. And while they were there previously, when we had border restrictions on this sort of thing, they would go there and they would wait for their PCR test to come back up to 3 days.
So
however, they didn't have to pay out of pocket the way like normal people had to pay. They would walk in, if you weren't vaccinated, fine and dandy, you go to this hotel and you stay there. But then they realized there are so many of them, we can't keep them in a hotel because the hotel needs to get emptied out. Yep. So they're just like, you know what, whatever, just go.
Yeah, so essentially, Marco Mendicino, in saying that a porous border works, he's kind of like a real-life example of the character in that Monty Python sketch, the pet shop owner, who kept telling the John Cleese character that the parrot is not dead, it's just sleeping. You see? Look right there, he opened an eye. He's not dead. He's just tired, right?
It's working.
Unbelievable.
It's the same way snatching guns from farmers in Alberta will cause the gangsters to put theirs down in Toronto. Like it's the same Marco Mendicino, his logic, you know.
And, you know what? I know we're getting off on a tangerine here, but that is an excellent example. Let's go after the Saskatchewan duck hunters. I didn't say farmers, but they may be farmed too, right? Take away their long guns, and meanwhile turn a blind eye to the real problem, which is illegal handguns coming up from the U.S., and at the same time reducing the severity of sentences for violent offenders, and basically getting rid of bail. It's catch and release. And you know what, Sheila?
It's zero cash bail. It's even worse than that. So it's zero cash bail. It's very frustrating for cops. I've talked to some cops who said this is just like a nightmare, especially in small town Alberta, because $50 is sometimes enough to keep these dirtbags in jail a little bit longer. And they know that at this point, they're just going to go before Justice of the Peace. The judge is going to say $100, but no cash. And the guy's out that day, and the cops are arresting him again later on that night. And, you know, cops get in trouble in the courtroom when they say, why don't you just make it $1 million? Like, what does it matter if it's going to be $0?
You know, and Sheila, riddle me this. Right now, we have 10 provincial premiers and the 3 leaders of the territories. So 13 out of 13 saying to the federal government, we need bail reform right now. Do you ever remember 13-0 going to the federal government saying change this policy because it's dangerous, and total inaction? But I guess Marco Mendicino would probably somehow figure out a way to show that this is working somehow.
Yeah, this is working. And they...
Oh, I think Sheila is frozen. It does get cold in northern Alberta. So why don't we, as we fix out these technical difficulties, why don't we go to our first ad break and get that over and done with, folks? We'll be right back.
If you want to look good and shine like me, you can do so at our store. Go to ribbonnewsstore.com. On this website, you have so much different style to wear, as this one, my favorite one, Justin Castro. With my code Alexa10, you will have 10% off on your next purchase. So don't hesitate, go now and look so good like me.
Have you checked out the fresh new swag we have at rebelnewsstore.com, like this nifty resistance trucker sweater? We have warm, cozy sweaters, t-shirts, mugs, hats, phone cases, you name it. Everything to fit your freedom-loving needs, or maybe even trigger a Liberal family member or friend. And for a limited time, you can use code TAMARA10 at checkout to save 10% off of your total order. So head on over to rebelnewsstore.com, check out all of our new designs, make some purchases, and use code TAMARA, that's TAMARA 10 at checkout for 10% off your order. Head on over, check it out.
Oh, hey guys, thanks for watching the live stream, and sorry for interrupting, but I just wanted to pop on to tell you about this incredible sweatshirt that I'm wearing, but also all the other great merchandise that we have available at rebelnewsstore.com. We're adding new stuff all the time, so be sure to keep checking. Even if you shop today, there might be something new tomorrow. And if you are shopping, be sure to use the coupon code Sheila10 for 10% off at checkout. Again, it's rebelnewsstore.com, coupon code Sheila10 for 10% off at checkout.
It's the values. You look at Western values in Western society, and these are values we could all relate to, but they're old world values of grit and community and perseverance.
It's a place where you can make a living with your back and your hands and a little bit of hard work. And it's a place of opportunity. And I think as Albertans, we're fiercely protective of that.
The world's energy crisis has been grabbing newspaper headlines. In a nutshell, we're running short of petroleum resources and the prices are zooming upwards.
My colleagues in the government and I have come reluctantly to believe that the price of oil in Canada must go up.
This was Alberta. Origin of the Alberta separatist movement begins with the election of Pierre Trudeau as Prime Minister.
It was a deliberate and malicious targeting of the West, which suited Pierre Trudeau just fine, just like it suits Justin Trudeau just fine.
Sunny ways, my friends.
Blackface.
There is an actual hostile government towards Alberta.
Why did your dad give everyone in Western Canada the middle finger?
Really, in politics, you do have to make big decisions, and whenever you make big decisions, there's going to be people who agree with it and people who don't disagree with it.
Plenty of people want to leave this country.
It's not the kind of idea you'd expect.
Hey there,
Hi,
Sheila.
I'm back.
Your daughter's not on the internet playing video games again, is she?
Everybody's at school. My computer just completely crashed, unfortunately. But I got it back up and working, so hopefully it continues to work. Did we show the video of the PCR testing at Davos?
So.
Because apparently it's a little easier for Canadian journalists to get into Davos than it is for Canadian journalists to get into the United States, which I found
that's for
very,
sure.
very interesting. Do you want to roll that one?
Absolutely. Sounds good to me. I think our super producer Olivia is lining that up right now. So let's...
Oh, it's Andrew Lawton. It's just a tweet from Andrew Lawton. And as Andrew Lawton explains, there's a chip in your ID badge that they give you.
Yes.
It's very creepy. This is creepy. And this is what they want to do to people in general, like have these chips that decide like who you are and where you get access. But if you don't take the PCR test, they deactivate the chip in your badge so you can't get into places. So everybody inside has passed this stupid little test and they have their RFID chip that they can go places. Very creepy, but also easier to get into this than it is for a Canadian to get into the United States.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? I mean, there's a friend of ours who tried to go to the Sabres game over the Christmas time holidays and was treated like garbage by a completely unprofessional U.S. border guard and never got through. And what I always never understand quite well, I got a theory. It's not that way on the southern border of the U.S., is it? Where it's porous. And we've had Katie Davis Court go down to, I think it was El Paso, Texas, where it's turned into kind of a holding center. There are people literally sleeping at the El Paso, Texas airport. And the best line of all, so far, it's my number one front runner, Sheila, for biggest amount of chutzpah in a single sentence. It was the illegal alien telling Katie Davis Court, "I haven't given you my permission to film you."
Yeah.
Is someone going in?
He's like, "I haven't given you permission to come into my country, but here we both are."
Yeah. Oh, so yeah. By the way, thanks for having me. And I'd like to rearrange some things, like getting away with that pesky First Amendment clause in the Constitution. Unbelievable. Yeah. But I'm not sure if we do have that video or not. Do we, Olivia? Or no, not the Katie one. The checking the IDs. Or
that was just an Andrew Lawton tweet.
Oh,
so we're okay.
I misunderstand.
Do we want to do a quick ad break again?
We did that. You know what? Why don't we go to the video? Because this I love, right? It's the climate change activists turning on the
beautiful.
World Economic.
This is one of my favorite things. I saw this yesterday and I was like, everything about this is perfection. I love it.
Yeah. So why don't we have that?
If you look around the entire, everything, the branding of the WEF is all about climate change and sustainable living and all of that. So they seem to have the same message you have.
It's the wolf disguised as sheep. They are masters of manipulation. They have managed to keep us divided, to keep us stupefied. Their slogan this year is unity or cooperation in a fragmented world. The last few years it was also something about a shared future in a fractured world. But who is fractured in the world? It's them. It's divide and conquer. And the reason we, the 99%, haven't been able to overthrow them is because they keep us divided and manipulated,
So do you think that so their message isn't necessarily what you're against? It's their follow through. You just don't believe their message.
Well, don't listen to what they say. Look at what they're doing.
Okay. Would you support their idea of eating bugs to save the planet? Because that was one of their big messages that obviously they don't do. We walk around, we see a lot of these people eating nice, beautiful, fat steaks that I couldn't afford. But do you think that the idea that they proposed is a good one in itself?
Well, people eat bugs all over the world. In Asia, I like eating bugs myself, but that's a bullshit proposal for the economic system of the world. It's just a greenwashing, a washing campaign for them to distract the attention from what is really happening. What is really happening is that they're fucking us in the ass with their companies, the multinational corporations, the exploitation of countries like mine all over the global south.
Wow, Sheila, I keep hearing that line. People eat bugs all over the world. And in fact, some of it... Pardon me?
The hell they do if they had a choice.
That's the point. And I think the number they put on it is up to 2 billion people. And are you telling me those people eating mealworms and crickets, if not given the opportunity to have a chicken breast or a steak, they'd stick with the bugs? They are eating those bugs to stay alive because there's no other choice. And you don't see that guy. He's so smug, isn't he? Oh, people all over the world eat bugs. Well, you know what? I wish Avi had a plate of crickets just to hand out. Show us how it's done.
With that guy, I just sort of want to stand back because when your enemies are fighting, save yourself some work and let them fight it out. Like, you don't get in their way. So when environmentalists are fighting with the World Economic Forum, I'm just cheering for assured destruction on both sides. But yeah, when you hear somebody say 2 billion people around the world eat bugs every day, I don't see that as something to aspire to. I see that as something that's drastically bad, that there are 2 billion people suffering with food insecurity so bad that they resort to scavenging for protein like a friggin' aardvark. And I think it's terrible. It's not how people should live. But I did some research on that guy because I wrote up that video as an article for the website yesterday. And he's the founder of something called EnviroLeaks. And basically it's like WikiLeaks for environmentalism. Like if a government is covering up an environmental catastrophe or whatever. But they seem to have a focus like on the Western world. And I'm reliably informed that the Soviets and even like the Russian Federation and former Soviet bloc countries right now, they are hiding a lot of crimes in their oil patch right now. But a lot. But that guy, while he lectures, and again, he's dropping a lot of truth bombs, by the way, about the hypocrisy of the World Economic Forum. But I just want to stop and point out that his climate change footprint, it's not exactly tiny. He is an an Argentine American living in Berlin who traveled to the World Economic Forum in Switzerland to stand in a snowstorm and tell us that the world is getting warmer. And the snow was just like a chef's kiss visual for this while he's complaining about climate change. And he's an anti-fracking activist mostly. And no doubt he's going to go inside and find the warmest place heated with natural gas that he can find to warm up because he stood outside for 10 seconds.
Yeah, with a nice hot $10 latte, no doubt, funded by who knows whom. But you know what? Yeah, let's campaign against fracking. I'm sorry, under President Donald Trump, the United States was energy independent for the first time in 70 years, actually exporting energy thanks to the fracking miracle. That's gone by the wayside with Joe Biden. And here in Canada, this guy is just so oblivious to the world. We had the German chancellor essentially taking a knee and begging Trudeau for 1/3 of $1 trillion of liquefied natural gas. We don't need that kind of money, do we, Sheila? What would we want to do with $334 billion?
Who needs more hospitals in the aging population? Like, who would need that?
And then the leader of Japan asking for the same thing. And it's like, absolutely astounding. So this guy really isn't tuned in to the needs of the world when he says that he's anti-fracking. And he's just completely oblivious to how, well, in the case of Germany, Sheila, they had state-of-the-art coal-burning plants that they mothballed and became dependent on oil and gas from their traditional enemy, Russia. And now look where they are, right?
Olivia, I'm going to ask you to go on to Ezra's Twitter, and there he's retweeted an account that has a clip of Donald Trump from 2018 at the World Economic Forum, because Donald Trump would go to the World Economic Forum and call these people out right to their faces. And in 2018, he pointed out to them that the United States was ending their self-imposed restrictions on oil and gas development, and developing American oil and gas, and of course, naturally by extension, Canadian oil and gas, would make the world a more free place. And he even pointed out that no country should be beholden to one nation for their oil and gas needs. And that was, he was pointing out Germany when he said that. You just have to read between the lines that Germany is beholden to Russia's Gazprom for their natural gas. And again, this anti-fracking activist who is from Argentina via America and now lives in Berlin, he's not against fracking because he heats his home with Russian natural gas from Gazprom. So he's not against it. He's probably pro-fracking, just in Russia and not in Germany. Why don't we roll this? Because the man was right, and that's why they needed to get rid of him.
Oh, we have the
circle of death.
Yes. We'll try to get that, but you know what,
We'll
folks?
try to get in a bit.
Sheila's absolutely right. Donald Trump was prescient in his predictions, and still to this day in certain circles demonized for, well, being right.
Yeah. Do we have it yet?
Okay.
To listen directly to you.
I'm here today to represent the interests of the American people. The world is witnessing the resurgence of a strong and prosperous America. I'm here to deliver a simple message. There has never been a better time to hire, to build, to invest, and to grow in the United States. Regulation is stealth taxation. The U.S., like many other countries, unelected bureaucrats, and we have, believe me, we have them all over the place, and they've imposed crushing and anti-business and anti-worker regulations on our citizens with no vote, no legislative debate, and no real accountability. In America, those days are over. As President of the United States, I will always protect the interests of our country, our companies, and our workers. We are lifting self-imposed restrictions on energy production to provide affordable power to our citizens and businesses, and to promote energy security for our friends all around the world. No country should be held hostage to a single provider of energy. America is roaring back, and now is the time to invest in the future of America.
Oh my God, Sheila. Do I miss that man? Oh my God. Unbelievable.
Should have listened to him. I think his 2020 speech was equally as good. Maybe we can dig that up. It's also on Ezra's Twitter page. But you look at that and you listen to that, and he saw the problems of Germany decommissioning their clean coal and getting off nuclear and sucking up to Russia as it was happening. He saw it. He also rightfully sees American energy independence as something that will protect human rights around the world, and it, starves a war machine. He couldn't, and he was widely mocked for saying those things to the World Economic Forum. But boy, the man was right, wasn't he?
He sure was, Sheila. Don't like to say I told you so. Actually, you know what? I dismiss that saying, I love to say I told you so.
I do.
In case of Donald Trump, he told you so. And you dummies out there didn't listen. And regardless of your politics, and I wonder too, Sheila, all those leftists that are driving around with Ukrainian flags on their cars and have the Ukrainian flag meme, now that the big bad Russian bear invaded that country last year. How do they feel about them being the provider to so many European countries of oil and gas? I wonder how they square that circle.
And not only that, Russia funded the anti-fracking movement in the United States. It's been revealed in UN reports, in Senate reports. They trace the money from Russia to, I think, an offshore account in the Bahamas. And then that money would flow into San Francisco, which is the hive mind of the anti-fracking environmentalist movement. And so these people who were driving around with the Ukrainian flag on their cars, their activism, their ideology was funded by Russia.
Yep.
And their activism made the world less safe. So congratulations, environmentalists. You did it.
And by the way, Sheila, I want to give our boss a plug. I think this video goes back to 2017, but it's about the fracking miracle in a city or a town in Pennsylvania. And Ezra just lays it all out, how this brought jobs back to this city, how it brought prosperity. Maybe it's worthwhile going there now and seeing what the Biden administration has done to the fracking miracle. But if you want to search that up, folks, it is an absolutely fantastic. Yeah. It's one of my favorite videos of Ezra's, and there's so many to choose from, of course. But maybe if you type in keywords like fracking miracle, Pennsylvania Ezra event, you'll find it. It's well worth watching. But
and Ezra's book Groundswell details all of this, the fracking renaissance. And if you are looking for something else to watch, might I suggest Frack Nation by Phelim McAleer. He went to some of these Pennsylvania towns. He talked to the landowners about what it meant, how it saved the family farm, having a directional drilling pad, low footprint directional drilling pad nearby, gave them the income they needed to save their generational farms. And how they went through and debunked all the lies of the anti-fracking movement. Let's show that clip of Trump in 2020.
Oh, yes,
again,
please. Yeah.
I can't even believe people chose Biden over him. It's just irritating to me to no end.
To embrace the possibilities of tomorrow, we must reject the perennial prophets of doom and their predictions of the apocalypse. They are the heirs of yesterday's foolish fortune tellers, and I have them, and you have them, and we all have them. And they want to see us do badly, but we don't let that happen. They predicted an overpopulation crisis in the 1960s, mass starvation in the 70s, and an end of oil in the 1990s. These alarmists always demand the same thing: absolute power to dominate, transform, and control every aspect of our lives. We will never let radical socialists destroy our economy, wreck our country, or eradicate our liberty. America will always be the proud, strong, and unyielding bastion of freedom. In America, we understand what the pessimists refuse to see: that a growing and vibrant market economy focused on the future lifts the human spirit and excites creativity, strong enough to overcome any.
Well, you got one thing wrong, Sheila. That statement, America will always be a strong, proud bastion of freedom. Not so much right now, I don't think.
This reminds me of, and I don't want to compare Trump to the Pope, but the idea of going into the belly of the beast and telling the beast exactly what you think of it, very bold, reminds me of Pope John Paul II when he went to Warsaw.
Yes.
When it was controlled by the Soviets, and he told off the Soviets to their face in a way that only he could, because he was the head of the church. He saw human dignity and human rights as a gift for all humanity by virtue of being born and created in the image of God. And he knew that only he could do it because he was the first Polish-born pope. And the audacity of someone to do that. That's what I think Trump was channeling a little bit there, because he's talking directly to the alarmists, the global socialists, and the control freaks, and telling them, you can have your stupid little meeting and you can plot all the things you want to do for the United States of America, but not on my watch.
And, the thing about these activists, Sheila, they don't really have any tangible solutions. It is just activism for the sake of activism. I mean, they can't even get the name of what we're going through climate-wise straight. Is it the climate crisis or the climate emergency or the climate catastrophe?
I call it the climate scare, because that's all it's going to do is scare you. It's not going to do anything. It's not really getting warmer. It's not really going to spell the end of the earth. It's not really causing these mass extinctions. It's not doing any of those things.
No.
All it's going to do is scare you into unreasonable anxiety. Just live your life. Just live your life. Who cares?
Fantastic. Well, Sheila, at this point, why don't we take an ad break and get back with Pierre Poilievre slamming both the CBC and the WEF. Wow, talk about a double play at a Winnipeg rally. So let's just get that ad up, and we'll be right back, folks.
My mug? I know. It's pretty cool. So is this hoodie I got on, and you could have it on too if you check out our special website at rebelnewsstore.com. That's where you can see Freedom Focus hoodies that we have for you, beanies, cell phone cases, you name it, all while supporting our journalism, where we fight to bring you the other side of the story, as opposed to, being forced by the Trudeau government to fund leftist media out of your taxes. The truth is, without you and your generosity, there is no Rebel News. So again, if you like the reports that we bring you and that we also fight for freedoms in Canada, please consider doing some shopping, picking up some swag at rebelnewsstore.com. We appreciate your support.
Yeah, just great stuff. Sheila, what do you make of the Pierre Poilievre speech at that Winnipeg rally? Because the mainstream media is slamming him, of course, but 'twas ever thus.
It makes me happy, because they've gotten this story of Pierre Poilievre going to Winnipeg all wrong from the very beginning.
Yeah.
At first, he was going there to meet with the Frontier Center for Public Policy. And the Frontier Center for Public Policy, according to the mainstream media, are just a bunch of wild-eyed radicals.
Yep.
That's interesting, because they're not. They're like white supremacists. And I think Marco Navarogini is one of the fellows over there, and that sounds like a pretty ethnic name to me. Anyway, so at first he was going to meet with these wild-eyed white supremacists who are just basically small government advocates. And then he wasn't going to do any media, according to the Winnipeg Free Press. And then you see all the interviews that he did, and the Winnipeg Free Press was like, I guess we didn't see it before we wrote this story up. And then now he's rightfully calling out the media for repeatedly getting everything wrong. And he's talking about the World Economic Forum, which, according to the mainstream media, is just some sort of conspiracy theory that publishes everything on a website and talks about all the things that they're going to do. And the Great Reset was just some big conspiracy theory, except for that book that Klaus Schwab wrote. So it's great. I'm so glad that he did this. It's far different than his predecessor, Aaron O'Toole, who said he was going to really take it to the media. And then he was like, oh boy, I hope they like me. And so it's good. I'm happy to see him.
Yeah, Aaron O'Toole, the man who published that, with all the stuff going around the world right now, Sheila, inflation, fuel prices rising, vaccine passport issue still a thing. And on New Year's Day, he tweets out, for 2023, I want to see less of those vulgar and profane F Trudeau flags.
I want to see less of Aaron O'Toole, but we can't always get everything we want.
I think you're right. I think we're going to see a new industry of F O'Toole flags. I mean, good God, this guy in that essay showed why he is yesterday's man, showed what a lying loser he is. He doesn't get the cause and effect of why there is such anger. Look, I'm not a fan of profanity myself, Sheila, but I'm not going to go to a guy who's lost his business, his job, his house, and say, you know what, Aaron O'Toole thinks Justin might have his feelings hurt with that ugly flag of yours. Can you wrap it up? No way. And, that's another thing. If Aaron O'Toole actually went out there to the crowd and talked to some of these people, then he might get an understanding of why there was such vitriol out there. And it's, well-justified vitriol in my book. So how do we get off on O'Toole anyways?
But you know what? It takes me to this next story, actually, because this is part of the same problem. Because Aaron O'Toole sees the problem of profanity and not what's driving the people to profanity.
Exactly.
For example, the Liberals right now are basically saying, that like $250,000 job you have as a rig manager, we're going to eliminate that, take away that lifestyle. Those things you want to give your kids, no. Those family vacations, you can't have those either. Those truck payments, by the way, can't pay those. So you're just going to let it get repossessed. Maybe you need to get out of that McMansion in the suburbs that everybody aspires to and just live in an 800 square foot coffin in a high-rise building in downtown Edmonton with your wife and 3 kids, because there's no job for you, because we decided to have a just transition, which means just transitioning you away from gainful, useful employment that the world needs to unemployment or, underemployment. And look, there's dignity in all work. I'm a firm believer in that. But the Liberals are saying to that guy who has worked his way up in the oil patch, started off as a lease hand washing coveralls on a rig, and worked his way up to a rig manager after 20 years of a career, safely working, training people, mentoring people, building a lifestyle, giving people what they need, And the Liberals are saying, oh, no, it's okay. Because when we take all that from you, you can still be a janitor. Because we're going to need janitors in the new green economy. And again, I'm not bashing janitors. I think all work is dignified, and you should, if your choices are government assistance or work, please choose work. But this is what the Liberals think is a fair trade-off for taking that oil field career away from you, and it doesn't go away. It just transitions to an oil field career in Russia, Argentina, Iraq, Nigeria. That guy is still going to be a rig manager just over there, not here.
Sheila, I want to echo what you just said earlier, too. To me, there is absolutely no shame in any job.
100%.
None. As the saying goes, the work is dirty, but the money is clean. And I don't look upon anyone's job
Never.
as something to mock or anything else. Having said that, it's kind of funny, these bureaucrats saying that. I don't think they'd ever pick up a mop
No,
to swab
I want
the floor.
Jonathan Wilkinson to mop floors. He'd be less dangerous if you were out there mopping floors. But this guy wouldn't see dignity in that sort of work. He wants you to mop the floors behind his environmentalist friends instead of taking care of your family. And again, the job doesn't go away. It just goes to a different country where you aren't working.
Yeah. And also, Sheila, who's to say there's going to be a plethora of janitor jobs to begin with? If your policies are putting, say, shopping malls out of business, you don't have a job as a janitor cleaning up after any people because the shoppers are gone. The place is bankrupt. So what kind of, fantasy are these guys purporting in the first place?
No, and a lot of people have robots that do their vacuuming for them. So these are not like future jobs. These are jobs that, people used to have a team of people washing the floors in the Costco. Now it's just a little thing that drives around. So, you know
that's a great point
happening.
too. And I'll tell you, when I'm out and about shopping, I see all these self-checkouts. Even at, the other day, I was at Value Village. I think every checkout is self-checkout except for one. And you know what the incredible irony is about that, Sheila, is that when you look at the technology, certainly the software and even the hardware in some cases, you got to go back to Silicon Valley. And these are the far left Democrats supporting, we need minimum wages of $20, $25, $30. We need a guaranteed income. Yeah. That's what they're saying. But behind the scenes, what they're building is technology to put people who would normally work minimum wage jobs out of a job.
Yeah, and if I'm not in a rush, I will wait forever to have a human being check out my groceries. Yeah. First of all, I don't work at Walmart. I don't work there. If you want to give me a rebate on my groceries so that I can check out my own groceries, fine. I'm going to need 15 minutes of whatever you're paying somebody per hour off my groceries, but I will wait for as long as it takes to speak to a human being and have a human being check out my groceries. It's just a little moral stand that I make when I go to the grocery store.
You know, Sheila, it's funny. Same thing for me, except when in some cases you don't get that choice anymore. You have to go through the robot. So that's shameful. So yeah, again, these, and this was a memo to Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson, and it was,
he's the worst.
And this is all somehow tied into a green economy.
Yes.
What green?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
I don't know. You know, it's the only green I see here is these heavily subsidized green energy companies getting more money from the government while they phase out jobs like, you know, what we do here in Alberta. It's the only people getting greener are the types like Al Gore. Yeah. Let's show this video of Ron DeSantis calling out the World Economic Forum elites. Again, channeling Trump here a little bit. Their vision is they run everything and everybody else is just like a serf, a peasant. Yeah, let's show this video.
And you're not going to see people acknowledge it. You know, they do this thing in Davos. They're doing it next week. All these elites come in, you know, the World Economic Forum, and basically, you know, their vision is they run everything and everybody else is just like a serf, like a peasant. They say they're going after energy, ESG, all these other things. And you see the Biden administration wants to nix gas stoves. Are you kidding me? Like, I want gas stoves. I mean, imagine like how many people had the hurricane come through, didn't have power right away, but were able to turn on some. So you cannot go down this road, but that's exactly what they want to do. And it's really weakening Western society, Western values, but underlying a lot of that is the CCP. You know, those people are there, they're elites, but you know, Xi is really kind of the puppet behind the curtain on a lot of this stuff. So very, very problematic, I think, in the direction they want to go. And what I've said in Florida is that type of stuff coming out of Davos, those policies are dead on arrival in the state of Florida.
Well, Sheila, there's another U.S. politician who I absolutely adore. You know, I just love how he's such a straight shooter. He doesn't use those weasel words. He means what he says. He says what he means. I know, what a concept for the arena of politics, eh, Sheila?
I just love watching Ron DeSantis press conferences because so many of them appear to be from some sort of tiki bar. It's very fun to watch this guy proselytizing freedom, standing up to the global elites, and you look behind him and it's like it's the top of a tiki bar, like that sort of grass hanging down. And so, you know, there's just somebody drinking a Mai Tai off in the corner while he's standing up for the free world in a way that you would expect Joe Biden to, but he's a feeble old man and completely unable to.
Yeah, indeed. And he embraces the freedom and doesn't say what a hopeful Conservative Party of Canada leader said, and I'm talking about Jean Charest, that freedom is overrated. Can you imagine he actually wrote that in a Toronto Sun column?
Well, we know who his advisors were, right? Like Tasha Keridan, who was so offended by somebody showing their sleeves on Fox News or on Sun News that she had to, you know, take to Twitter to emote about it. So we know who is running his comm strategies, and they're just not good people, not smart people, and definitely not conservatives. So.
Yeah. What happened to Tasha? Why don't we show the all hell breaking loose outside the Coquitlam Public Library. Here's the loving, tolerant left in support.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Yeah.
Love. The love wins crowd.
Love Trump's hate,
people.
Sheila. Right?
Yeah.
Love Trump's hate. Check out the love on display outside this library that was hosting a drag queen story time hour. Unbelievable.
Hands up like this and push.
Do not go. Do not touch.
I'm not touching
How is this love? There's like 10 people on the guy who's protesting. This is Canada, you're allowed to protest.
I just want to point something out here. There were cops everywhere. Everywhere. And people are getting assaulted in the streets, pinned up against the windows and beaten. But also, look at those cameras of the mainstream media. Yep. They're pointed at all of this. Did the mainstream media did they report anything of this? No. What they said is scuffles break out at a drag queen demonstration. No. Counter protesters were beaten by the peace and love wins crowd. They're chanting about love across the street while innocent people who are peacefully expressing their political views are being beaten on Vancouver streets. The cops aren't doing a damn thing about it, and the mainstream media are lying. We had to have security there for Drea and Matt. We should have more security for them next time because things got really violent. They had to get extracted from the event for their own safety. People want to chip in. That's journalistdefensefund.com. But look at this. Sorry, I'll shut up so you can watch these people being shoved and there's cops doing absolutely nothing because they're worried about escorting a drag queen out to the car like she's friggin' Maduro.
Incredible.
They're not here, man.
Sheila, I want to say how offended I am by some of these Antifa types for merely having the pride flag, the old pride flag, not the new pride flag with that. I think it's the trans BIPOC vagina. I think it's supposed to be a transsexual vagina or something like that. I don't know. But boy, are they ever behind the times.
Look at the mainstream media catching all of this.
Yep.
I hope to God their footage is subpoenaed by these people when they press charges.
I agree. But you know what? That tells you something, doesn't it, Sheila? The fact that these thugs are not going after the mainstream media.
No, of course not.
Yeah, that's their propaganda arm. Why would they do that?
They did this stuff to me, the mainstream media. Yeah. I forget his name because he's so inconsequential, but he was a journalist for CP, video journalist, a photojournalist for CP. I forget his name, but I know he hate watches me. So let me tell you, I forgot your name because you are an inconsequential person on the media landscape. But when I was punched and had my camera punched into my face by the male feminist Dion Buse at dionbuse.com at the Women's March. The camera gets punched into my face, but it's still rolling. And as I go home and I'm watching the footage of this, I can see that a CP journalist is taking pictures of me being punched. None of those videos and the photographs made it to publication until we reached out to CP and said, first of all, we said, you guys were there. Where's your footage of this? Why isn't it in the story? And they said, oh, there was nothing usable. And then I said, no, we can see you taking dozens, if not hundreds of pictures in our own footage. Where are those photos? And then all of a sudden they're produced and they're everywhere. So this journalist was actually willing to bury and financially harm himself, because you don't really make money unless you sell a picture. He was willing to take money out of his own pocket and sit on that footage because he hated me so much. And they're doing it to these people too.
It's despicable. And the fact that we are now funding as taxpayers the mainstream media, I think we are now in the position of being shareholders, Sheila. You owe it to us because you're taking money out of my paycheck every 2 weeks like you are every other Canadian in an involuntary fashion. But, the big picture here, Sheila, is the fact that why is drag queen story time a thing to begin with? I know going back about a couple of years ago, it raised its ugly head. And now I would argue if you're a library not having a drag queen story hour, you're kind of the outlier. Secondly, and I'm not saying this as a joke, Sheila, why is it completely acceptable for a man to pass himself off as a grotesque caricature of a woman and read stories to minors? Why are you not, open to a biological female who's a stripper dressing the exact same way? Why would that be offside? Why does it have to be a male pretending to be a female and not a biological female? Answer me that. Not that I'm campaigning for that, mind you, but what's the difference?
I'm real suspicious of someone who is so committed to the idea of reading to somebody else's children while scantily dressed as a woman that they would become violent.
Yep.
I'm real suspicious of those kinds of people. And in the before times, in a more reasonable society, we all would have been suspicious of this. This, to me, feels like a fetish playing out with other people's kids as the captive audience. And we have an entire subset of society saying, we believe in their rights to be scantily clad. And I'm censoring myself here because I don't want to say what I said in the meeting this morning.
Oh, that was a good one.
Read to other people's children with your genitals loosely exposed or at least outlined in spandex, that they would become violent with the people who would object to this on the street. But, Sheila, it's only going to get worse because the cops are doing nothing and the mainstream media is helping them.
100%. And Sheila, here's the other thing. I question the parenting skills of those parents who say, this is absolutely fantastic to expose, my 6 or 7 or 8 year old to this guy in fetish gear reading a story. I mean, and think about this, Sheila. If parents en masse said, this is vulgar, this is inappropriate, this is not age appropriate, I'm not having my kid go there. If there was a zero audience, there'd be no more drag queen story time. It would die on the vine. But instead, this is the cool thing to do in some circles. I can't figure that out.
I'm against sexualizing kids in every instance. They are only little for so long that they don't need this. I remember when my kids were little, and my daughter she was really into Disney princesses, although she's probably not into Disney now. Well, she's not. And I'm happy about that because they've gone a little woke. But there was a point, very woke. But there was a point, and my son was the same way. Spider-Man was his thing. If he was like 4 years old, if he wanted to wear a full Spider-Man Halloween costume in May to the grocery store, perfect. You're only little once. Go nuts. My daughter, same thing. If she wanted to wear her disgusting, dirty Disney princess costume that she had been riding her bike on and then on the quad wearing, and she's just muddy, if she wanted to wear that with me to the grocery store, perfect. Again, you're only little once. The rules of society do not really apply to you when you're little. Live free when you're little, because when you get older, it's nothing but rules. And so I just wanted them to be small as long as possible. My youngest one, she played with dolls quite a bit till her friends were like into TikTok, and she's like, well, I just kind of like my American Girl doll. I was like, that's perfect. That's great, because the world is going to come on you pretty fast. So the longer you're little, the better. I don't understand the mindset of a parent who wants to make their kid grown up so fast. The world will eat them up faster than you want them to anyway. They're grown in the blink of an eye. Why would you do that to them? Why would you take these precious, innocent times away from them and expose them to these things they're not ready for way too soon?
You're so right, Sheila. Childhood really is the ultimate perishable commodity. It happens once and it's gone. It goes so fast, like you said. And, maybe these parents have forgotten what it's like to be young. Because why would you want to accelerate, children into this, I have no other words, this dark realm? And yeah, that's what that is. If there is a biological male, grotesquely presenting himself as a female, what other word is it? And it's just shocking to me, Sheila. And that says it all, what happened in BC, that the fetish gear people came out, acted violent as they always do, and the police not to step in and restore the rule of law. Then why are you a cop? Why are you wearing a badge? Why do you have a sidearm? You shouldn't be on the job if you're part of the political correctness movement. That's an absolute disgrace. But like you said earlier, you won't see the mainstream media going after that angle. Oh no, it'll all be how, oh, what a beautiful Sunday, love trumped hate once again. No, the haters are the counter demonstrators, I'm afraid to say.
Yeah. David, my mom used to say something, and you think about your parents, and as they're saying it, you're like, you're crazy. You're conspiratorial. But my mom used to say that Moloch always gets his child sacrifices, always, in one form or another. And as I got older, I was like, yeah, that's sort of what we call reproductive rights. Moloch's getting his babies on the altar. But sometimes the babies don't have to be dead for Moloch to get the souls of those babies. When you see this sort of stuff, when you see parents willingly throw these children on the altar of radical gender ideology, Moloch always gets his child sacrifices in one way or another, and it's always parents throwing them up on the altar, always.
Sad. And I'll tell you another thing, you were talking about playing with dolls and whatnot. Lady Menzoid made this observation as a girl. She hated dolls. She used to always pull the heads off dolls. Thank God that was yesterdecade, because if she was a child now doing that, well, you're going to be prescribed puberty blockers. This is obviously a boy, because this girl likes to play with boy toys, and we're going to slice and dice her genitalia and give her hormones. And that's where we are right now. Not the idea of a tomboy seems to be extinct, Sheila.
They don't exist anymore. Like, I look back and I think they would have sterilized me if I were in this time without the devoutly religious Catholic mom that I had, who like nobody pushed around. If they had, that would have been my mom would have been my only insulation against being sterilized by these lunatics if I were born in this day and age. Like, look, David, I'm outdoorsy. I like dirt bikes, hunting, shooting, bow hunting. I work out all the time. I've been known to swear. I don't dress in the most feminine of manner, but I have 3 beautiful kids.
You do?
And a nice husband and a nice life. And these people would have done their best to change me in a record way.
Sheila, I think sterilization is maybe a best case scenario. We live in a day and age of medically assisted suicide. Why not? Clearly, for everything you described, driving quads, going to Bass Pro to buy your merchandise, hunting, fishing, what have you. Clearly, you've gone off the reservation, and there's no way of bringing you back. So, Sheila Gunn Reid, have you considered going to the great hereafter? Do you think maybe that would be a solution for you and society? That's where we are right now.
Oh, I know. And I look at my own daughter, who's as outdoorsy as I am, maybe even more, better shot than I am. She's very strong. She plays rugby at like a pretty high up level, but also feminine, cute, funny, smart.
Yeah.
But if she had a crazy teacher in her ear and not me talking louder than the crazy teacher and her faith to guide her, I wonder what would become of a girl like her in a different family.
Again, despicable the fact that the counter-protesters who were violent outnumbered the demonstrators,
Yep.
that law enforcement refused to do the right thing, and that these libraries seem to think that they must conduct these events. And, bugs me, Sheila, because libraries are publicly funded, right?
Yeah.
How dare they? But, I think we covered this issue.
Do you know what? Yeah, and one more. We've got a few chats, but I just want to point out too. Of course, we're going to hear going forward a spate of lady journalists complaining that people said mean things about their clothes or their hair, or their face, or their age, sent them a mean tweet because they didn't like their story, and they're going to cry and complain this is violence against journalism or journalists. And they'll say, particularly minority journalists, when we've got Matt and Drea out there getting jostled around and having to get extracted by security, while we've got the likes of Rachel Gilmore crying about mean tweets and somebody made a mean meme about her. That's what happened on Friday. I was like, listen, lady, might I suggest you hear me out, get a life. Like who cares if someone made a mean meme about you on Twitter? But she did. While she's crying on Twitter, while our journalists are out there doing like real tough, actual journalism that puts them in real harm's way.
100%. The double standard is shocking. And Drea and Matt are visible minorities, but apparently if your politics are not the right way, you are... You're
white.
Just as
you're just white.
Yeah.
You're just white. Like it happens to Asians all the time too, right? They are counted as white in university applications because of their socioeconomic background and stuff like that. So yeah, Dre and Matt, sorry, you're white now.
And sometimes Latino, same thing.
Yeah.
If you're the kind of Latino that is pro, but if you're the Latino that is conservative, you're classified as white. Unbelievable.
Yeah. If you put X at the end of Latino, Latinx, or I don't know how you say it, Latinx, then you're fine. Although I did see over the weekend, someone is saying like girl X, like they're putting an X on the end of girl.
What?
To indicate that a girl could mean like a boy who thinks they're a girl or like actually my daughter. So
of course.
Yeah. Nothing.
There's
nothing you men can do.
Sheila, have you ever met a Latino or a Latina that said I'm a Latinx? I've never met one.
That's cultural appropriation, by the way. You're like basically eliminating their culture because their language is gendered. So if you are trying to overlay your white university social, girl X. See? So if you're trying to overlay your white university social justice nonsense on an entire culture, might I suggest that you are the colonizer who are trying to, because you're figuring that this entire culture is not woke enough for you. So you're actually the colonizer. You are that which you think you are fighting.
So getting back to this girl X that we just had up on the screen. So there we are. This is suggesting that, well, they look like girls, they resemble girls, they wear girls' clothing, but they might be, an inner male. They're a boy. I mean, like, what am I don't even understand the language anymore, Sheila. What am I supposed to make of an X after girl as opposed to an S?
How would you say that if for like somebody like me, am I like a woman? Like, I don't even, this is just so stupid. And it just is creeping, right? Like they came for Latinas, and now they're coming for all of us now. Like this is why you fight in the first ditch and not the last, because I guess I'm a womanx now.
Yeah, good point.
Guess.
All right, Sheila.
Okay,
I think we do have some chats.
Yes, and I know Ezra called me when I was on air, so I probably need to wrap this up and return his phone call because he's in Davos, so it's probably important. Well, if Ezra calls, it's important.
That's kind of like Commissioner Gordon getting a phone call on the red line. It's Batman, and or is it vice versa? I can't remember. I screwed that up totally.
I don't know about your stupid shows. I just remember my son was really into Batman, super into Batman, loved a good Batman costume, and Spider-Man. Okay, so Adam Ottawa gives us $5, says, "Happy Monday, Rebels. Mr. Schwab declared 2023 the year of the poly crisis." I think we just watched that from Vancouver. By poly, do they mean plastics? Makes me wonder how these gross people choose their words. That's an important point that you're making. Not like poly obviously means multiple. So we're going to have multiple crises this year. And if we don't, well, they're going to make sure we have them. But it is important how quickly they're changing the language. Control the language, control the agenda, control the people, and control how they communicate. And we see this happening all the time with how they describe violence, right? I saw something the other day called cyber violence. And it was in a government document. I'm like, there's no such thing as cyber violence. There's violence, and there's probably cyberbullying, which is not a great idea. But cyberbullying is also not violence. And so, but they're quickly to conflate these things, because how do you react to violence? With violence. You're justified in reacting to violence with violence. So if you are the state reacting, then you're this. You know what? Next time we're not doing Zoom, because Zoom has frozen up all day today. But that's the problem here. It's Zoom. Normally we use Skype. But, like if it's the state dealing with violence, well, then they're justified. They have a monopoly on violence, so they can just meet your cyberbullying with a cop at your door, kicking your door in and hauling you away. But if you're self-defense against cyber violence, well, then if someone you sent a mean tweet to might just show up at your house and punch you in the face, because that's self-defense now, because you were violent to them. You meet violence with violence. That's how you exhibit self-defense. So, it's very chilling how quickly they're changing the words, and it's very dangerous for normal people.
And Sheila, we saw going back several years now, the saying by those on the radical left is punch a Nazi. Now, listen, if you were someone hell-bent on global conquest, if you were someone that was carrying out a genocide of a people, maybe that's kind of a punchable offense. But what they mean is that if someone disagrees with you, right, you are therefore a Nazi, and therefore you are punchable. This is their warped logic in process. Yeah. The idea of agreeing to disagree, the idea of having a debate and then having a beer later. No. It's we've talked about this before, compelled speech. And if you do not acquiesce, you are a hater and you must be shut down. That's where we are today.
And this punch a Nazi business is, the only person it really helps is the actual Nazi. Because all of a sudden he's being a little bit normalized. Because instead of being like literally the worst thing that on the face of the earth, you get lumped in with all these run-of-the-mill rudimentary conservatives who are just trying to mind their own business, who are also getting called Nazis now. So you sort of end up from being the worst to just existing in this gray area, according to the mainstream media. So it normalizes the actual Nazis because it mitigates what they really believe. It conflates it with some very mainstream ideas. And so that's the left for you, normalizing Nazis.
Unbelievable.
Funis gives us $5. We may yet get a 2023 election. I'm not sure. When Trudeau realizes how many conformist voters will drop to vax damage if he waits till 2025. I'm not sure. You know what? I'm not sure how many people are going to be aware of just how many vaccine injuries there are, because as you know, the mainstream media is running cover on that too. I saw this thing the other day that it was aspartame is causing all these like sudden deaths. And I'm like, this thing that's been out there for like 60 years. Look, I don't like aspartame. It's gross. It's not good for you. Just don't do sugar, but also avoid the fake ones too. Like, just don't. It's not good for you. But it's also now, after like 50 or 60 years, is it the thing that's killing all the young people? It's definitely not the Coke Zero. You know what I mean?
Well, that is amazing, Sheila, because aspartame, of course, was a miracle sweetener when it came out. Going back to, I think it was the early 80s, saccharin, which was the artificial sweetener, was taken off the market. They connected it to cancer. And there was a few years of diet soda being distributed where it was absolutely undrinkable. Whatever the sweetener was, you could not drink. It was like battery acid. And then aspartame came along. It was a miracle. It tasted like sugar again. And you're telling me they got to pull that off the market too?
Well, they're blaming it for the sudden, like everybody's like sudden heart attacks. Like maybe it's the aspartame. Like I don't
Unbelievable.
think Pepsi Max is doing in these kids. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so I'm not, again, my point was I'm not sure if people are really going to be aware of just how many vaccine injuries there are. And I don't think they want to be aware. I think a lot of people are living in constant fear, particularly parents who just got their kids vaccinated just so that they could live their lives. And for some parents, oh my God, I'm so sick of Zoom. It makes me murderous. But you know, there are a lot of parents out there who are living in fear of, you know, the potential for their kid to have been harmed by the vaccine, and that can't feel great. And so a lot of those people would rather live in ignorance than in reality.
And Sheila, on that note, it should be noted that whenever you see a young, healthy, even athletic person die of a heart-related symptom, that question is never asked. Did they get the COVID-19 vaccinations? I mean, it's simply off the table. But what if we flipped it around? Right now, what if we had a spate of unvaccinated kids, healthy, athletic, young, dying, and one of the connections was they're all unvaccinated? Do you think the media would go with that narrative? Do you think they would be bringing that up prominently in the lead?
You know, I'm just excited for the mainstream media and all these people to be rediscovering medical privacy when it happens to them. You know, what was that? I forget the girl who had like an episode on air in Edmonton, a journalist. And she was like, you know, just so you know, my medical history is my own. Yeah, I know. That's what I've been saying all along. It's just too bad that you were one of those people who was like, no, it's not yours alone. It is between you and your bartender and your gym owner now all of a sudden. So I'm happy to see them rediscovering medical privacy. My problem is they aren't realizing that they were advocates against medical privacy for the last 2 years.
Indeed. And by the way, I'm not saying that reporter, and I hope she's doing well, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it was due to getting the jab, but can we not just ask that question? And apparently the answer is no, you cannot.
You know what? And if we can't ask the question, that's fine too. One of the reasons I was against the vaccine mandate is because I believe in medical privacy and people being able to make their own choices. But it sure would be nice if one of these people would say, you know what? I think actually I quite got it wrong this whole time. And I'm really sorry. And I appreciate the grace that people are showing me now when I was out there advocating for people to be shunned from society for 2.5 years for not producing their Vaxport. It would be nice if these people, once these things start happening to them, if they say, you know what, dang it, I got it wrong and I'm really sorry. But you'll never hear that from them.
No.
They just want to carry on.
Not a chance.
That's the thing. I'm like you. I love a good I told you so, but I'm also trying to show people some grace that a lot of people are getting mugged by reality and they are coming around to our way of thinking. And when they do come around to our way of thinking, after I've been proselytizing it for 2.5 years, when they come around, I have to sort of stick my I told you so's in a sack and say, okay, great. Okay, perfect. Let us never do this again. Let's make sure this never happens again. The problem is they don't have any of the remorse of it all. And that's where I'm struggling, right? Where they're like, yeah, no, I believe in medical privacy now. Yeah, me too. Where's your remorse?
Yeah,
because you don't have
100%.
any.
Indeed.
Anyway, Adam Ottawa also says, as a gay man myself, I'm utterly embarrassed with the display of the trans plus left. Us gays never fought for this absurdness. Mark my words, this is the year the LGB divorces from the T.
You know what? That's an excellent point. And I've heard this from gay men, lesbians, that we're not down with this trans business at all, right? That this is not what we fought for. And there you have it from the horse's mouth. Yeah, I think it's time to drop that letter T from that initial gram.
Well, let's just stop for a second here because I think it's actually gay kids that are in the line of fire here. Because it's gay and lesbian kids that are the ones being carved up and being sterilized, right? These
good point.
What would be perfectly normal, just gay kids who grow up to be a gay kid, or like same-sex attracted kid or whatever. If left alone, their dysmorphia would resolve itself and they would just live a productive, fertile life. But they're not. They're the ones being carved up by these lunatics and these ghouls, these Mengelas. So yeah, I'm with you. Like, if you care about gay kids, maybe let's quit carving them up and medicalizing their sexuality like this. Anyway, World's Worst Gamer gives us a buck. Is David the new Adrian Adonis? Saw those fake boobs he wore wonderfully and wondered.
Oh, Adrian Adonis. I remember him from, and it used to be that his tag team partner was Jesse the Body Ventura, wasn't it?
That's right. Yep.
You know,
yep.
And there was a period where Adrian Adonis, his like little, it was like Piper's Pit, but he had a flower shop, right?
Oh, so great.
And he was being extremely effeminate. And I'll never forget Vince McMahon before he became Mr. McMahon. He was the color commentator or the play-by-play guy. He says to Jesse the Body Ventura, say, Jesse, wasn't Adrian your tag team partner once upon a time? And Jesse goes, what can I tell you, McMahon? Some guys change over time. Right? So
yeah.
There you go.
You know,
wow.
I was watching clips of Gold Dust on YouTube the other day, and I was like, there's no possible way they would get away with this anymore.
Oh,
absolutely no possible way that you could get away with. Like, even we've talked about this before, that Silence of the Lambs couldn't get made. No.
Oh yeah.
Like you just couldn't, even though it was based on an actual killer. You couldn't, that doesn't matter. Objective reality doesn't matter. You couldn't make that movie right now. But yeah, you could not have a character like Gold Dust anymore in the WWE. There's no possible way. Just, they'd be canceled forever.
Oh, you're so right. I mean, when apartheid fell in the early 90s, Sheila, the biggest contingency out there that was mourning the fall of apartheid was Hollywood film producers, because, South Africans being white, right, being the authors of apartheid, they were the perfect villain, right? Because there's no Nazis anymore. World War II ended in 1945. And, oh, no, you mean apartheid's gone? It's one man, one vote. Who do we cast now as the politically correct villain, right?
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking about that the other day, again, as I was watching clips of Gold Dust, because that's what I do in my spare time. But I was thinking about how the far left and the Saudis are like shaking hands on this, right? Because the new like Saudi overlords potentially the new Saudi overlords at the WWE, they would not want a gender bending character in the WWE. But the far left are like, that's offensive. That you're painting us as weirdos. Don't do that either. So yeah, it's like the far left and the Saudis are like, yep, we got it, guys. Good deal. No more peculiar and interesting and original characters.
Wow, what a brilliant observation. Yeah,
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Give yourself, Sheila, a Barry Horowitz pat on the back. There you go.
Me wandering the dark recesses of WWE YouTube in my spare time, which I don't have a lot of, but I wasted it. I wasted it watching those videos. I think we're all wrapped up.
Oh, okay then. Well, holy smokes, 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. Extra half hour. Everyone's getting their money's worth, even though it's pretty much for free, unless you're giving us
poor Olivia. Poor Olivia. She's got other
poor
things
super
to do.
producer Olivia. But anyways, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to us on this Blue Monday, the most depressing day of the year, according to some. Hopefully we've cheered you up, but given the content of some of these stories, maybe we put you into a spiral downward. And thank you, of course, to those who gave us the super chats. Much appreciated. And, of course, the hard work of super producer Olivia. Sheila and I will be back tomorrow, Tuesday.
Yeah.
In the meantime, stay safe and stay sane.
Here's some more serious thing. I'm cops, and that says police, but that's your drab green camouflage. These are the serious blokes.
And this is a new vehicle. This wasn't here last time I was here. This vehicle here, which has the...
That looks like an anti-riot screen in case people are throwing things at at the vehicle. I think that's what that's for.
Absolutely, but it makes you wonder what intel did they get? Or
Stop filming us, all right?
Can I ask why? Yeah, ask why? It's part of the news, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But we don't like our faces in the news all over the world, okay?
Okay.
So
I respect that. We'll blur your face. I promise we'll blur your face. It's a promise.
Okay.
It's a promise. I promise we
do
will.
our jobs. We have families at home. We don't need us in the
I
news,
respect
right?
that. We'll blur